or something.
Oh,
Okay. All right.
Which-
Are we live? Jen? Okay. All right. For all of you out there who've been waiting with bated breath, Michelle Rehill, Chair of the Northborough Library Trustees, call the December 9th meeting to order at 7:08 p.m. I will now do the roll call attendance. Brittany Burns,
Brittany Burns here.
Mitch Cohen,
Mitch Cohen's here.
Pat Fonts,
Pat Bond's here.
Jim Hogan. Can you unmute yourself?
Okay,
Okay, I'm doing attendance. Jim Hogan, are you here?
I'm here.
Yay.
Did you hear me?
Jocelyn, we got
You
you.
heard me.
Yes, we can hear you. Thanks, Jim. Jocelyn McKellany,
Jocelyn McKellany here.
Beth Thomas,
Beth Thomas here.
Richard Tucker is not here, and I, Michelle Rehill, am also here. So to the world, sorry for the delay. I'm going to move on to the approval of the minutes for the August 12th, 2025 meeting, September 9th, 2025 meeting, and October 14th, 2025 meeting. There is an amendment to the August 12th. It lists Brittany Burns as being in attendance, and she was not. And September 9th, it says that Michelle Rehill was not there, and I was. So having made those two amendments to the minutes for August 12th, September 9th, and October 14th, would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes of those meetings?
So moved.
Thank you, Mitch.
Second.
Second, Pat, thank you. All right, all those in favor again.
Michelle, before we move to a vote,
Yes.
I was not in attendance for the September 9th meeting. Am I able to vote to approve all of the? Thank you, Mitch.
Yeah.
Okay.
I almost asked that question before we went ahead, but was that a yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The Attorney General's office says there's really no connection between presence and voting on meeting minutes.
Thank you. All right. So all those
Wait a minute.
in favor-
That didn't make sense.
Which didn't make sense.
Just a minute. I didn't understand that because I agree with what Jocelyn just said because I wasn't present at some of the meetings as well, and I'm just not sure what Mitch was saying.
Yeah, I at some recent Attorney General training, somebody asked a similar question. Do you have to have been there to approve meeting minutes? And the answer was no.
Huh.
That it can even be delegated to one person. It just needs to be approved by the body. I was always under the impression that you needed to either have been there or have watched the video or heard the recording
Yes.
to vote. But at least as of recently, my opinion was changed by someone who knows better than I do.
Okay. Thank you.
So we'll go with it. All right. So all those in favor of accepting the minutes as amended, Brittany Burns,
Brittany Burns, aye.
Mitch Cohen,
Mitch Cohen, aye.
Pat Fonts,
Pat Bond's aye.
Jim Hogan,
Jim Hogan, aye.
Jocelyn McKellany,
Jocelyn McKellany, aye.
Beth Thomas,
Beth Thomas, aye.
and Michelle Rehill also says aye. The motion carries in the affirmative unanimously. Okay. FY26 appropriations report. Any questions or comments about those?
I had one question. For the November, uh, the books and periodicals went way down and the non-print media went way up. And I'm sure that I know that roughly, works out in the end, but I'm curious what if there was a change or it just happened to be this month that we bought more non-print media for no particular reason.
Sorry, when you say went way down and way up.
The relative to the prior months.
But
So
the
yeah, the
spending for
spending.
those 2 months? Okay.
Sorry if I didn't explain it. Yeah, the books and periodicals was 2,700 compared to 6,000 each of the last couple of months, and non-print media was 9,700, which was up from 52, which was up from 15. Not suggesting there's anything wrong with that. I'm just curious if there was, an intentional shift or it just worked out that way with popular titles and so forth.
So we only get invoiced when we receive shipments. So the books and periodicals is way down because there was a delay in the shipment, because of Baker and Taylor
Mhm.
going out of business and a delay with Ingram trying to catch up with all of their new business. So we received a ton of boxes. You should have seen the delivery that we received after Thanksgiving. So those
Okay.
had not been processed. So that's a little lopsided, relatively speaking. Um, I placed a larger than usual order for overdrive last month. So that accounts for, and I think there might have been a database that we paid for that renewed last month. So it's not unusual. It's just not like steady,
Yeah. Okay.
if that helps.
Thank you.
Yep.
If there aren't any other questions or comments, we can move on to the director's report.
Any questions? Are we
No?
all sad about Lindsay? We're all sad about Lindsay.
Yes.
We are very sad about Lindsay, but
Can we
very
just do
happy.
something about Ashland? I mean, it feels
I
like we
know.
have an ongoing issue. Is
I
this
know.
intentional? Like what? Hi.
I know, like I want to egg their building, but like but at
Maybe
the
a
same
quid
time,
pro
I'm so
quo. Do they
happy
have
for my
talent that we
staff.
could maybe kind of borrow or something?
No, I'm like their director is very wise to be taking the people that she is taking because she's made two very good decisions for her assistant director now.
And
And go and
exciting to
visit
see
Katrina and
Katrina.
Grafton.
Yeah, and exciting to see Katrina and Grafton.
They're so
Yep.
lucky to have her.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Okay.
I had
I did
one.
have to Google what Tonys were
So did I.
in the, in the children's report.
I just figured, you know what? I won't remember next week, so I'm not even going to check.
My
But they're
nephews
going
are
like
obsessed with
hotcakes, and
them.
that's all that counts.
I had a really minor comment just in terms of how the really good reports are written. It said like I noticed I this and so forth, and my assumption is the I is the person who wrote that report rather than you, Jen, for everything, like you not using your French to help a patron and so forth. Um, it's confusing in written that because that person's name or title isn't there.
Okay.
Um,
Noted. I will add
yeah,
names
yeah.
so that you can be
Yeah,
suitably
names or
impressed.
titles if you want to keep names out, whatever works, or change the I to, the reference library director or something like that, reference librarian, whatever works.
Well, I sort of tripped over that, but then I remembered that at the beginning it says reference, and then the
Yep.
comments are under there. Um, so if we if you stop and think about it that way, but maybe
Yeah.
just say under each department put reference highlights or reference comments, circulation, or comments from the reference desk, comments from
Yeah.
circulation.
I can
Oh, the rest
also
is perfect.
specifically call out my staff. I mean, they do amazing things. I don't speak French. That's Alessandro.
Okay.
Um, so, you know, if they're going to do cool things, they should get credit for
Yeah.
it. So as long as I'll just make sure that nobody
I-
has any like first names only. If nobody has any specific objections to that, I'll just double check with everybody for
Yeah, yeah, that was actually what was in my mind, was that people might not be comfortable having their name in the report, but if if you're willing to check, just check and make sure.
yeah, and if they are, I'll just use title or something generic for them, and that will be fine.
Okay.
One other question for someone who doesn't go into the children's section. Who is Dr. Taco and why is brumation so important? I don't understand a word of that sentence, even though I recognize those are like alphabet letters that I know.
Dr. Taco McBeardface is our bearded dragon.
Okay.
She has been living in the children's room for 4 years, 3 years, I think. Brumation is very important because it basically it's hibernation. So she goes to
Okay.
sleep through the winter. And that's important because the kids will walk in and say, "Oh my goodness, where is Dr. Taco?" Because we take the tank and we put it in a quiet, dark space so that she can sort of brumate undisturbed.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. I assumed through context that might be it, but I'm like, I'm just going to ask because I'm sure if I don't know, someone else doesn't know, and now we all know more.
Like those are just words.
Right. I'd like to
It's
use
like,
that word in a sentence, and I might say that I'm going to have a brumation period, but I want to make sure that it's, appropriate for me to say that about myself.
okay, yeah, or
But
were
will
you
you use
thinking?
Dr. Taco in a sentence,
No, I am not.
Jocelyn?
No, I don't think I'll use Dr. Taco.
I, I was thinking you were that, well, do we have a new staff member and I just haven't met them, or I don't remember that person, and now they're sleeping in the library somewhere? That's weird.
Very
Well,
official
now we all
title.
have clarification, Michelle. You're welcome.
Okay, cool.
I think Dr. Taco came to one of these meetings one time, didn't she?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think
I
you're
think I
right.
brought her to an in-person meeting too. When
Oh,
she was little, she used to kind of hang out
Mm,
here, but she's bigger now and she's happier in the tank. So we don't want her claws to get stuck. If fibers get stuck in her claws, it can be really bad. So we don't really take her out as much anymore. But yeah, I think we used to when she was little. She used to hang out a lot more.
all right. If there aren't any other questions, we'll move on to the part of the director's report that involves the new business. I'm going to start with the health and wellness plan.
I will give you guys the option. Would you guys like to tell me what you think? Or would you like me to talk at you first? I can do it either way.
I'd like to hear about it from you a little bit first. Although I
Okay,
don't think I have any questions, but yeah, I may have some after you talk.
sure. So hopefully you all had a chance to read it over, at least the first few pages, which are really the meat of the plan. Um, I won't go super in depth recapping everything that's in here. Although if you want something like that, I did present this to the Youth Commission last week and I spoke for about 45 or 50 minutes. So if you're interested in more of a me dissecting this plan bit by bit, please feel free to watch that. It's recorded. Um, and that went really well. That was really fun. I did want to zero in on a few key points. First of all, this was a really enlightening process, I think, for Caitlin and I. Maura was absolutely the right consultant for this project. It did a lot of things. So I think, one, we learned a lot, and I pulled out a few things that I did want to sort of mention that we want to focus on, I think, right away. It it's aligning us for grants and making us very competitive for grants. So it's doing exactly what we were hoping it was going to do in that sense. It is focusing our story in the way that we were hoping that it would, at least based on my reading of it. And it's useful. I think it's turning out to be really useful for other departments as well, because there's things in here that aren't necessarily going to be our main point. Like there were some things about, people really want more active programs, exercise programs. I really don't see the library doing more exercise programs, but that information is helpful for rec, and the types of programs. Health and Human Services is keenly interested in all of this data. I think there's going to be other opportunities for other partnerships that come out of this. And I think some of this is going to be really helpful for some of our other partners. So I'm really happy with that. Let's see. Some of the things that I wanted to specifically call out. I thought it was interesting that she mentioned the disconnect with adults when they talk about social isolation. So across the board, social isolation shouldn't be a surprise, but post-COVID, everyone's dealing with that. And as people are aging, the way that they're interacting or experiencing social isolation or the problems and barriers that they're encountering is different. So like with younger populations, they're talking about managing online friends and how they sort of deal with relationships that are primarily internet based. Whereas, there's a disconnect with adults when their children are aging. So if you've ever had little ones, you know that your social life really becomes like, who are your kids' friends and who are their parents and who do you see at swim meets and, soccer games and things like that. But then as the kids get older, you start to experience more of an isolation because you're not connecting through those family events anymore. So we thought that was a really interesting thing that the library might be really well aligned to sort of help bridge. The accessibility, of course, is something that is huge for us. The inability to separate digital literacy and health literacy, as well as general literacy. I think it's something that we probably knew in the back of our minds that these things are interconnected, but I thought it was sort of centered well, that you can't talk about health literacy without talking about digital skills and how interconnected those are. For example, we did talk extensively in the survey about where people are getting their health information, and a lot of it is online. And if you don't have the digital skills to navigate the internet, you're not going to get very good health information, and you're not going to know where to trust. And then when you throw in AI, and in this survey, because it was almost a year ago, only 2 people really mentioned AI, but that was before AI was sort of built in. So now when you're doing Dr. Google searches, AI is baked into those search results, and you may not even necessarily realize it. So the lack of childcare as a barrier to accessing information was another one that we sort of pulled out as like, there's probably something there. If people are looking for health information and they want to do research and they can't because they have a child with them, maybe we're not putting computers in the right place, for example, things like that. So these things are just sort of making us think about our library services in a slightly different way. So in that, and that was the intent, right? So yay, success. But we're also thinking about, she listed these things separately, but of course people are not just one thing, so we started thinking about, how does accessibility weave together with health literacy, with digital literacy, um, with childcare, with social isolation. Like, how are all of these things interconnected, and how do they intersect with library services? And then how does all of this connect back to our strategic goals? Um, so that's where we are right now. We want to have more conversations with our staff at our next staff development day, which is next week, and sort of start to plan out those very specific, there was one whole section that talks about a digital wellness hub, which Health and Human Services was really interested in, that idea as well. And as well as expanding the physical space that we have right now. If you go onto the second floor of the library, on top of the video game shelf, there's a bunch of brochures. There's fentanyl test strips. There's some other, there's health information. That's our health hub. And people like it. It's really, really popular. We're refilling those things all the time, but it's not a very intentional space. So that's something we really want to dig into and have more conversations about, like, how can we make that a more intentional space so that people still have the privacy to find what they're looking for there, but in a more defined, sort of thoughtful way than just like, oh, these came in the mail the other day, let's just throw them over there, which is exactly what we're doing right now. So with that in mind, we are starting to put some of these front and center into how we think about what we're doing right now. We're thinking about, it enters into my brain when I'm thinking about the budget, when I'm thinking about action items, our next strategic plan, sort of everything that we are doing. I'm just sort of recentering some of these goals, and just thinking about how they fit in. And then Caitlin and I are working on a way to hold ourselves accountable so that this is not for nothing. Part of the success of any plan, right, is making sure that you've actually taken these suggestions and done something about them. So we're working on a way to evaluate. And Maura, one of the things that she did was come up with a really nice draft of a spreadsheet so we can keep track of what we've done, for each goal. So, be active, be connected. What have we done? What programs, what services, what improvements? What are we going to do? What did we do? How did it work? What was the impact? So that at the end, we can kind of come up with a sort of end report and say, like, this is what we set out to do. How successful were we? Let's see. That was everything that I really wanted to say. And now I would like to ask you if anything jumped out at you as particularly interesting, if you had any questions. Did you spot the typo? Because there is at least one. Jocelyn's like, yeah, I found it.
Wasn't going to mention anything.
No, I circled it.
In a report of this length, one or two typos, which is really all I saw, remarkable. And since I'm already speaking, I'll just say there's clearly a lot of thought and work that went into this final report, which really it's not final. I look at this as a living document, as something that, the library staff, and not just the library staff, can lean into as we make plans for where we want to go down the road. I think it also sets the library up really well in two ways. One, I heard you mention grant funding, and I don't want to steal your thunder for the next agenda item, but this kind of a document does set you up well as background support for things that you're going to be looking for. You feel like, because I saw you include your grant application. Thank you. I don't know that a lot of people know what goes into filling out grant applications. It's a ton of information, and this is supplemental documentation that helps prove the point. We've done all this work. We're moving towards this end. And the other thing that stuck out for me is seeing other departments, town departments and teams mentioned throughout the document, that the library does not operate in a vacuum. And by setting out our plans and goals in such a clear fashion, sets the library up to be the leader in the space for collaboration across town departments, where we can now intentionally step into a space around, to your point about being active, where this is something the community said they want. We can make some things happen, but oh, hey, we have a whole department that does that, and let us be supportive for you in this space. So those were, I had a lot of thoughts as I read this whole document. All of them were positive, but those are kind of my key takeaways, is just like, what a great moment in time we're in to have this as the launching off point for the next, set of improvements and just progress that we can make as a library. So thank you to everybody, even out in the community, who participated. I think this is amazing work.
Yeah, it feels really energizing to have something like this.
Yep. I just want to say what Jocelyn said. Ditto. Thank you. It's like all of the things that I thought you just said, only you said it better than I would have.
I don't know about better, but
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm very happy we did this. That the town did this. It's not just the library did it, but this will benefit everybody in the community. Certainly all the departments that do all the work for the community. And I think it will probably benefit those outside the community once they see something like this and see what happens as a result of doing this work, that they'll want to steal a lot of these ideas, and that's good.
And
Yes,
Jen,
and I'm happy to share them. Sorry, Beth, go ahead. I
that's
didn't
okay.
mean to cut you off.
That's okay. I would say you actually already spoke to one of my not even questions, but just, it was the AI piece that jumped out at me because I kind of laughed that it was only two people and was like a little surprised. And then I was like, oh, this was a year ago, and keeping that in perspective of this is a living document, how much can change in 1 year in terms of information access and needs, and just keeping that in perspective, which you're clearly already doing, I think is really, because this is such an incredible, fabulous strategic plan, guiding document, all of those things. And just in the time it took to create, there's already new things that have come out. So yeah, I don't know, not really a question, more of a comment, I guess. I'm that person tonight, but just really, I take your point. It is energizing. It's exciting. And I think keeping it rooted in what the library is already doing is also really smart, and just gives that intentionality to things.
Yeah, it
I
was
totally
interesting. I'm sorry, I keep doing
go
it.
ahead,
Go ahead.
Jen. Go ahead, Jen. I was just gonna say I
To
totally
Beth's point, I was gonna say it was really interesting to have conversations over the last year with Maura and Caitlin. And Caitlin can attest to this, like something would change drastically in the health world, and we would look at this and say, does this still hold up? Or
Well,
did we already miss the boat?
even what websites you're trusting and what information is available where has changed drastically in the last year. So
Exactly.
Yeah, and to that point, Beth, I could see this as a model of something the town maybe does or the library does every 5 years or something like that. Maybe not at this scale. That might be too ambitious, but I do think it's a good model. And I don't know. One of the things I noticed too is I think it pushes back on some of the narratives that we hear today about that devalue libraries as public spaces, as sources of information, especially when we're seeing federal funding being cut, all of these kinds of things, right? Like people, even just very simply, the format for library programs, right? People want in person programming. And I think that pushes against some of the narratives that we hear. So I think part of that too, when I was reading about this, is like, no, this does matter. And I think that's really, really cool.
If nobody has any other questions, I'd really like to have Jen have you talk about that grant application, because there to me is such a clear and obvious connection between the health and wellness plan that you just presented and that grant application.
Yeah, that grant application basically wrote itself. So if there was ever a grant that felt perfect for the moment in time that we're in, we got the results of this study back right around the same time that I found that grant. So just to kind of recap and summarize that grant, it is a state grant. We had to apply for a minimum of 30 devices. That was the requirement. We couldn't ask for less. We could have asked for more. More felt like overkill to us. 30 felt like about the right number for what we were thinking that we could do. What I loved so much about this grant was that it wasn't just laptops. That in itself would have been great because currently all of our laptops are running on Windows 10 and we need to replace them anyway. So I was going to be looking for some kind of funding. Those laptops were not out of our appropriations. Those were donated originally. So we were going to be looking for another donation or some other way outside of our appropriated funds to replace those anyway. So this was timely in that sense, but the fact that we applied for all 30 of the devices to come with vertical mice, which is an accessibility feature. If you're not familiar with a vertical mouse, if people have dexterity issues or carpal tunnel wrist issues, it's a sort of an adapted mouse that is just a little bit easier to maneuver. So we know we have patrons that could really benefit from the vertical mouse because they currently have expressed, a difficulty with the current mice and have asked for, is there a padded mouse pad or like, is there something that can kind of help me lift my wrist up so that I can use this mouse? And I'm like, gee, wouldn't this be awesome if we could get this? It comes with all of the standard things that we have on our current equipment. So deep freeze to keep people's information clean every time the computer restarts, antivirus software. It comes with Office. But it also comes with JAWS, which is a low vision software, and TD Snap, which if you're not familiar with that one, I was not. It's designed for people with language difficulties. So it's designed if you, people with autism spectrum disorder, cerebral palsy, ALS, anybody who's recovering from a stroke. So it works with eye movement or in a variety of different ways. So the software does a few different things. So that would come standard on all 30 laptops. The mouse would come with all 30 laptops. The beautiful, beautiful charging cart that would plug into the wall. So all 30 laptops plug into the cart, and then there's one plug that goes into the wall. We don't have to find 30 outlets to charge these things. Lovely. So the idea for us with 30 is that we can offer, the idea for the grant, the requirement is that the patrons can use the laptops, they can circulate. And this is not exclusive to libraries, but I feel like it's really well suited for libraries. We are already doing this program. So a lot of the questions were like, how would you lend these to people? And it's like, okay, well, we have a software, we're already doing this. We already know how to do it. We already have a process for this. But we're able to greatly expand what we're offering right now. So teen programming, if you think about the ability to, I used to teach computer classes back in my former life in North Carolina when I was just a little reference librarian. I miss that part of my life. And I would love to be able to teach digital literacy skills again. It is not really possible to do that in our current setup because you would have to use all of the computers. So then they're not available to the public. With laptops, I can take them into the meeting room and I can have a small class and I can teach a skill for 45 minutes and people are still able to even use laptops because we have 30 of them. And you cannot teach a class to 30 people. It's 10. 10 is your limit.
Jen, if I can like kind of pop in on this a little bit too.
Yeah.
We've seen a huge increase in people using like our laptops for interviews, for proctored exams, for that kind of stuff. And I know Kate and I have our adult librarian, Kate Ponce, and I have been talking about a like a fun digital literacy series that she's been wanting to do. Just
Mhm.
doesn't have the capability of it right now. Like she wanted to teach people like how to use like the basics of Canva if you don't know how to use it, but you want to make cute stuff on your own. Like you can do it like that. And she said she's brewing more ideas. So I'm sure there'll be a laundry list at some point. But having that accessibility alone, even to just do like the job interviews or the telehealth stuff, would be
Mhm.
a massive help to us because we're seeing a lot more people come in with that kind of need.
Yep. And
That's
that
all.
was one of the check boxes for the grant as well. They wanted this to be able to enhance digital literacy, wellness, health, and job skills. And then if you think back to what I was just saying about the lack of childcare being a barrier for people to access health information, the ability for us to put some of these laptops down in the children's room for parents or um, parents, guardians, caregivers to be able to check out. So while their child is playing in the children's room, they can keep an eye on them and still use a laptop, right? And even be able to send something upstairs to the printer. I think that's a huge, um, sorry, there's a cat. um, that's a huge thing that we're not able to offer right now. Not easily. Right now, you would have to go upstairs to check out the laptop. So you have to know that they're up there. So if you are accustomed to coming into the library with little ones, you're probably not thinking that you can do any kind of research because you don't go upstairs. So being able to put them right where somebody already is would be a huge sort of benefit for that specific underserved population that is saying they can't access things because their childcare duties are sort of getting in the way right now. And then just a couple of things. If you think back to our strategic goals, financial stability, creating accessible and welcoming spaces, this fits right in with that. So I did include the entire grant application so that I didn't have to spend 2 hours explaining to you exactly what this grant was. But if there are any questions, oh, and 3-year warranty, very, very helpful. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
When do we hear back?
This month.
Yeah.
Okay. Anytime now. They said somewhere in the middle of December. So it's the middle of December. I keep checking my email.
Okay. That's pretty exciting. I just see that connection between how well that grant would support the health and wellness engagement report, and then the plans that you have for that. So I don't have any questions or any other comment unless Jocelyn says something cool and I say, yeah, ditto.
Honestly, I was gonna say it was so perfect as to almost feel like I was being punked reading the health and wellness report and seeing your grant application. I'm like, there's literally no way that these two things happen coincidentally because that doesn't like life doesn't line up like that. So just to have that happen the way it did, again, remarkable.
It's amazing.
And I think, as I said before, I think having that outline just opens up the possibility. As you had outlined earlier, there's so many other grant possibilities out there. I think it was at the end of the health and wellness documents, just so many options to pursue. And like you said, you've already done the work. It's already written. It's a copy paste almost.
Right. Yeah, I love how much work she put into like finding those grant opportunities and writing them down. And now it just seems like now that we're thinking about it, I'm seeing more and more and like other people, since they know that we're trying to look for grants, people are sending me grants. So Health and Human Services sent me one through LinkedIn the other day.
Nice.
which dovetails with our Libraries Transforming Communities grant that we got a couple of months ago. So yeah, it sort of builds on each other, creates a buzz. Oh, and there was one thing that I did forget to say, which was that sort of as a side benefit, Maura taught us how to do this just by watching her, and like the way that she was able to slow down and explain everything. I don't know that I would need to hire a consultant again. Like I would love to work with Maura all the time on everything, but she trained us on how to run focus groups and how to craft survey questions and things like that. So there's some soft skills that we did not have going into this that adds to Caitlin and I's like our tool belt and the capacity that we have to do. To your point, like in a few years when we want to redo this, we probably don't need to spend $20,000 again because we learned how to do it. So.
And I want to mention for anyone watching this, we used ARPA funds. It was an ARPA grant that paid for this. So if somebody says $20,000, wasn't town money.
It is ARPA
It wasn't
funding.
local tax money.
Thank
Technically,
you.
it's
Thank
town
you.
money when it came in.
Aren't any other comments? Do you want to move on to that FY27 budget update?
That one's short right now, but I did want to give you a status update. We did officially get some instructions from the finance director for our budget preparations. The goal is to hit a 2.9% budget, which is somewhere in between level funded and level service for us. It's not catastrophic. We don't have to cut staff. We're not cutting collections. We'll be fully certified. We're not looking at cutting. If you think back to the ridiculous level funded budget that I presented to you where we had no money for anything, it's not that. So that's good. That being said, 2.9%, we do have to play around and make some tough decisions. So right now, I'm in the process of looking at absolutely everything and making sure that, are we making any assumptions here? Like one of the things that we looked at was our cost of mailing and pre-printed envelopes, and a huge reason that we were spending, it was about just shy of $2,000. And the reason that we were spending that money was to mail bills to people when they had outstanding overdue items. The ILS, the system that we use, requires that you have an email address now. So there's still a few that are missing, but there's fewer and fewer patron accounts that are missing email addresses. The system automatically generates overdue notices and bills through email. So the paper bill was just sort of like an extra, like, hey, we really would like our stuff back. Just as a reminder, like we don't charge you if you bring it back. They are effective in getting people to bring their stuff back right away. But we would like to, one of the things that we're assuming that people won't bring, I think we were operating under the assumption that we had to send the bills. Otherwise, people might just ignore the emails. I'm thinking that people are going to bring their stuff back regardless. The paper bill just was scaring people into doing it sooner, but they're going to get around to it. So when we're looking at, I have to carve out money here and there. For $2,000, that's something that we're going to cut out that will not significantly hurt us. Another thing was, I think it was about $800 for, and I'm going to say the interlibrary loan program, and now that's going to sound confusing to people because we use interlibrary loan in a lot of different ways. What we mean here is the out-of-state program. So if we cannot get you something from the state of Massachusetts, we can get it from another state, as long as there's a library in the country that will mail it to us. We have been paying the cost of the shipping, and that's about $800 a year, give or take. Rather than end the program, We are going to shift that to, if you would like an item that we can get out of state, you pay us the shipping cost. And we have a revolving fund. I've gotten permission from the finance director to do this. It's all totally fine. So we're just going to pass that cost on to patrons. It's only for things that are out of state, which is a very few select things. These are for people who are doing really, really niche research. Generally, I mean, that's in keeping with what other libraries are doing. We would not be the only library charging that shipping cost. But, you know, that saves us from having to cut something more severe out of our budget. So we're looking at things like that. I have a request for a quote out for a new contract for our copier. We may have to get rid of one of the big machines that we have. We have 3 in the building. We may have to downsize to 2. That's an inconvenience. That's not like a catastrophic thing. It's not great, but it's not going to cripple our services the way that not having an event registration software would cripple our services. So, that being said, every single tiny little line item I have been going through and checking, like, okay, is this the least expensive thing? Is this something that we absolutely need? Are we making an assumption here that might not be correct, with our IT, with literally, I mean, just everything. I know our budget better than I've ever known our budget.
And I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you have a sense of, so you're saying, and I know that this is one of the things you're striking, so this is more just, I'm curious, spending $2,000 to try and get these materials back, what the cost of the materials would be if we didn't get them back to replace?
That is a good question, because one bill could be for 50 items or it could be for 1 item.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be hard to say. I would guess that the cost of the items would be more than the cost of the printing. But I think we would, again, it's depends, right? I mean, not sending the bill, I would like to see how that impacts our reclaim rate, because I do think people are going to get around to it. I don't think people are, I think they know they have the materials. And I think the bill just looks more official,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like occasionally I bill myself and I get a bill in my inbox and I'm like, oh, right, I should bring that back. Whereas like you get an email and you're like, oh, right, I've got that, I should do that. And then you stop thinking about it, but you will get around to it eventually. So I might have, after a year of not doing the bills, I might have a better estimate maybe of the cost of that and whether it was worth it to start sending the bills again. And that being said, I do think if we have an account, or occasionally we have families, so there's like maybe 3 or 4 at the same address that have 50 things that are checked out and long overdue, I will probably still print those and send them out. We just might wait a little bit longer. So
yeah, it doesn't take away your ability to do it. It just doesn't, it's not preset for it.
Right. We're just not going to do it every week.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense to me. Thank you.
Jen?
Yes.
Now that we've got the Institute for Museum and Library Services back, at least for the time being, yay. All right. Will that help the bottom line, or is that going to be so far up above, on state level?
I think what that's going to do is stabilize the unknowns for especially like our network costs for future years. If everything kind of holds, because that's really where you would see that money.
Okay.
That
but should help them,
yeah.
One less worry.
Yeah, so much of that federal funding funnels down to us in an indirect way. So again, it might increase the number of grants that we can go for, which might offset costs in a different way. So I think one of the advantages that we have is, unlike, say, DPW, who has to go to town meeting for any capital item, we are often able to, like, if we want to do a small remodel or buy furniture, we're often able to find a grant or some other way of funding that. So we're not passing those costs on to the taxpayer. So IMLS funding, if it can trickle down so that we're doing a project without asking the town for the appropriation to try something or to buy something small, I think that's how the taxpayers are getting that benefit.
Thank goodness.
Woohoo!
That was exciting.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions or about that FY27 budget update? Is there any other business that needs to come before the board at this time? If not, the next meeting is going to be on January 13th, 2026. We talked about having perhaps an in-person welcome to the new year meeting. How are we feeling about that at this point?
Holiday
Yeah.
Barring
slash
crazy weather.
holiday slash birthday party, if I remember correctly.
Yes, it would be it would be somebody's birthday party. I'll bring the cake if we have a meeting in person.
Woohoo, cake.
I will make that commitment. But it's going to be in
Sounds like it's
January.
in
I'm not-
person then.
Go for
Does
in
it sound-
person.
Unless
Yeah,
Michelle
I'm
wants
good
to
with
drive
that.
around handing out cake to all of our houses.
Yeah,
That's
really.
a long drive for me.
And it's her cake. Oh my word. Um,
Marie
Michelle, I
Antoinette,
did have one thing before we adjourn
mhm.
that I forgot. And I
Okay.
told you I was going to do it, and I forgot.
Oh yeah. Oh,
The 3 subcommittees, I would love it if we could all, if I could meet with all 3 to set goals for next year.
yeah,
And I also have, like, for the administrative subcommittee, there's a few policy updates that I need to run through. I have something for building and grounds. Actually, there's a signage proposal. Yay, signage. More than 0 signage in the building. And for the long range planning committee, our long range plan is due to be it's up in 2026. So by October of 2026, we have to file a new one. And we should probably talk about some of our trust funds. So I would love it if all 3 could meet. I think on Zoom is probably fine unless any of you want to meet in person. Sometime in I know the next month is going to go fast. But even if it's just like a very short meeting, just to touch base.
okay. All right. And I know I have the paper in front of me somewhere of who's on which committee, because I don't remember those things. Does everybody remember their committee?
yes.
I know I'm building and grounds, and I made myself the head of that committee.
Ooh,
So I don't know what I was thinking.
seems like you knew the person who could have gotten you out of that.
Yep. And I should have talked to her. Yeah, so admin, Jocelyn, Beth, and Pat. Long range planning, Jim, Richard, and Brittany. And building and grounds, Michelle, Mitch, and Amanda. So, maybe Jen, if you can give us some potential dates, or if you have something for a specific committee that you want to cover, if you could send something out so that we could say, Okay, so that we can respond or figure out what the calendar is and
Mhm.
to schedule the meetings. That would be great. I don't want to try scheduling a meeting and then find out you aren't available. So,
Fair.
okay, so if you just give us some dates that we can all work with, that'd be awesome.
Perfect.
Okay, anything else? Making my little notes. If there is nothing else at this time, the chair would be delighted to entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Michelle, I will so move.
Thank you, Jocelyn.
I'll second.
Second, oh,
I'm giving it to Jim. You had all the other ones, Mitch, last time.
Very
All
fair.
right. So it was moved by Jocelyn, seconded by Jim to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor by roll call: Brittany Burns,
Brittany Burns, aye.
Mitch Cohen,
Mitch Cohen, aye.
Pat Fons,
Have bonsai.
Jim Hogan,
Jim Hogan, aye.
Jocelyn McElhenney,
Jocelyn McKelney, aye.
Beth Samus,
Beth Thomas, I.
and Michelle Rehill also says aye. Can't even say my own name. I officially called this meeting adjourned at 8:04 p.m.
Good night,
Thank you
Kate.
all.